So getting into it, guys, there's 6 core systems. Your demand engine, your sales, your design, your pre-con, your build, AP, and AR. Okay. And what we want to do, without getting into the weeds, we want to describe what the output is of each engine and then optimize from there. Does that make sense? And forgive me, I'm going to start at a very basic level and then we'll build on it, right? Because I just want to be really linear in this discussion and not have to bounce back and forth. So with the demand engine, otherwise known as marketing, the reason why I say demand engine is because you can make a strong argument. Your qual call and your initial site visit are like the last 2 steps of marketing, right? Because it doesn't become sales until you decide to give a proposal. Does that kind of make sense? So that's why I call it the demand engine. And the output there is qualified opportunities. Well, how do you define a qualified opportunity? Well, number 1, your cost per lead. And number 2, did you get JTNBA? Job scope, timeline, need, budget, and authority. Right? With sales, the output is retainers. Notice I didn't say contract. You can't get a build contract until you get a design retainer. You can't estimate until you have a loaded design. Has anybody other than Rich Lee, the one time I've seen in my entire 15-year career of this, has anybody ever gotten a perfect set of drawings that you couldn't find anything wrong with? Has anybody ever, from a designer, got a perfect scope of work that you trusted that you could bid from immediately? No. So that means we have to do work before we can actually bid a job, right? We need to get paid for that work. That's one of the biggest profit leaks in our colleagues who are not in this room, is they're doing a bunch of unpaid work in the design and pre-con level. I don't care if you're a handyman. I don't care if you're design build. It's all the same. It's just a question of when you get paid and how much, right? Whether on the front end or the back end. And if it's on the back end, then you got to think about what your average your average time that you're inputting into this, how much that's costing you, divided by your conversion rate, and then that's how much you got to charge to make up for the times you didn't win the job. And how do we know that? How do we know the sales process is working? Close rate, right? You can't point at the demand engine because we defined what a qualified lead is: job scope, timeline, need, budget, authority. Once you decide to bid a job that is a qualified opportunity, and that is on the sales rep to close it. I'm looking at Jay right here because we have a bunch of whiny sales guys in our company. Like, they need to understand this, that the moment you decide that you're going to write a proposal on the job, you now fucking own that opportunity. You can't blame marketing. Does that make sense? Like, yes, that's your last moment to reject a lead. So the output is retainers or retainers and contract. Well, contracts are down here. Well, assigned trades, contracts. I'll just put contracts. So then in the design process, it's like, what is your design process trying to produce?
Paperwork that allows you to run the job without being there.
Perfect. That's exactly that. Okay. How do you define quality of that? Because it's never going to be perfect. Anything that's a system ran by human beings, there's always going to be a margin of error. The NAHB defines a quality estimate as being 98% accurate. In other words, we're allowing our estimators to be wrong on their quantities within 2%. Okay, so if your business absolutely needs 35%, what is your absolute minimum profit percentage that you have to sell at? 37, right? That becomes your green line. That's what I call the green line. We don't sell below the fucking green line. And how do you know the design process is working? Slippage. Because the whole point of the design process is to eliminate slippage, yeah? Okay, so then, the output of design is a 98% accurate estimate. That rolls into pre-con. In your pre-con process, that's where you produce contract. That's the output. Contract with the homeowner, contracts with the subs, okay? And the two need to fucking match. It needs to balance like a ledger. Because if there's any scope that's not like bid and subcontracted off, you just accepted all that liability and you're not getting paid for it. Our job as general contractors is to manage risk. It's not to build projects. That's what the trades do. We manage risk. That is what you're earning a premium for, is managing risk. How do you know the pre-con process is working? 100% of scope is laid off, and you have laid it off as a percentage of the budget, ideally under 100% of your allocated budget, right? In other words, we want to be saving money at pre-con, because then that flows into your slippage account for when shit inevitably goes wrong, right? Like if I owned your company, my goal in pre-con is as a result of trades day, your negotiations with trades, I want to be about 5 to 9% below what I'm booking my costs at, or I'm estimating my costs at, so that I have that slush fund for what's inevitably going to go wrong, right? Does that make sense? The average contractor has 9% slippage. The average contractor doesn't follow this process. As long as you're building in a 9% cushion, you should be okay. But you're not going to be competitive, not if you're up against somebody like us that has a system like this, right? So the better you are, the less contingency you have to build, the more competitive you are. Make sense? Because all of us have the same costs as contractors. We all have the same costs. So if you get underbid by somebody, just know that either A, their overhead is less than yours, or B, they don't know what they're doing and they're one step closer going out of business and working for you. Then that gets to the build system. And the guys, at the end of this segment, I'm then going to break apart each piece of what you need to produce the quality output, right? I'm going to describe the people and the processes that fall under each system. Notice I use the word process and not a system. Does anybody know the difference? A system is a collection of processes. A process gives you task, conditions, standard, who's responsible, right? And a deadline. Well, that falls under standard. So task, condition, standard. That's a process. Great. So the build system, the output is profit. It's not a fucking completed project. It is profit. To the homeowner, they get a project, but that's what you're exchanging for profit. And how do you know that your build system is working? It's the percentage under budget. Notice I said under, not over. Under budget, the percentage complete, and the percentage of schedule. Ideally under 100%, right? That's how you know you're doing good. You're under 100% of what you allocated to get the job done and the budget, and did we get 100% of it complete? Then APAR, really simple. That's how we collect money. This is another leak a lot of contractors have, is they're really sloppy about collecting their money. And it's not based on when you invoice that we measure quality. It's when you should have been paid, okay? So in other words, let's say you're at substantial completion and the homeowner is holding your final payment hostage, okay? Every day we wait, that's counting against our aged receivables, okay? And ideally we want to have 0% aged receivables over 30 days. Once it goes past 30 days, that's a credit card statement. You're now on the hook for it, right? But if it's within that 30-day period, we're okay, right? So this is how we measure quality. We have each system, we have what the output is, and how we know, or how we measure success. So let's start talking demand engines. 7, 11, 4. Google did the study in conjunction with Harvard. What they found is in the modern era, that's like right now, it has never been, trust is at an all-time low, like all-time low. And what Google's found that it takes 7 hours of exposure. Okay, what's exposure? This is exposure. Content is exposure. On the phone, consuming media, that's all exposure. You need 7 hours of exposure, 11 touch points, and 4 separate channels. Okay, like face-to-face is a channel, phone is a channel, email, all the different social medias are individual channels. Okay, so you need 7 hours, 11 touch points, 4 channels to convert a stranger into a high ticket purchaser. Anybody know what high ticket means? You don't impulsively toss it on a credit card. Everything we do here is high ticket, right? So we have to reverse engineer our demand engines to hit these numbers, okay? It's science, guys. This isn't alchemy, this isn't art, it's statistics. If anything is based on skill or like just intuition and knowing what to do, that is an art. You cannot systematize art, which means it is in the hands of you, the artist. So how do we break that down? Let's talk about buyer journeys, okay? We're gonna put a pin in this for just a second. As people are going through their buyer journey, they go from unaware to problem aware to solution to product to most aware, okay? They all follow that same flow. And so at problem aware, your prospect can describe the problem that they have. Something is not right. People write checks to solve problems, right? So at the problem aware stage, are you selling against other design build firms or are you selling against realtors? In action and realtors, that's exactly right. was a trick question. But most contractors are talking about, I build with quality, I build on time, I can get started tomorrow, that free estimates. That's all like product most aware, when the homeowner hasn't even figured out how they're gonna solve this problem. All they know is they got one. And so our content at this is right up here, this is top of funnel. In other words, it's all cold. They've never seen you before. This is the first touch point. So do you think the first touch point should be, hey, 0% down, 0 payments for 60 days, 0% interest? Or should it be content about how to decide between remodeling and purchasing a new home? It's so obvious, right? And so the thing is, now we're talking content right now, and we'll get into how we deliver the message. But right now we're just talking messaging. Marketing needs 3 components. Okay, you need a target market. In other words, an avatar of somebody you're speaking to that has this problem, a message based on what level of awareness they're at, and then media, which is how you deliver it, okay? Door knocking is a top funnel activity, okay? So is content, so is ads if you do it right. So it's just a matter of how scalable. Now, the more scale you want, the more money you're gonna spend. Leverage costs money, right? Otherwise it costs you time, which is more expensive than money. So then we get to middle funnel, right? So at this point, they decide, I'm gonna remodel, right? I choose remodel over do nothing or new home, right? Whatever, forgive me. At the solution stage, now they're like, okay, cool, I wanna remodel. What's the first question they want to know? How much does it fucking cost? Can we answer that question? No. So what does the homeowner do? Right, they talk to 19 different contractors, trying to collect bids that can't be bid, and then they end up doing business with the last contractor they speak. Is that a system or is that luck? Is that something we want to do? No. So what kind of content, what kind of message would you prepare for a person that decides, hey, I'm gonna remodel, and now I need to understand what does it cost and how do we go about it?
Design proposal.
Answer the fucking question. Okay, awesome. So now they know, best way to understand this is the different project delivery mechanisms. So design build versus IPD versus the traditional route. In the exteriors game, does this have direct correlation? Not really. Well, here it's the difference of steel, vinyl. It's about the product itself. In GC land, it's how do we go about mitigating the risk? How fast do you want to go? How certain do you want to be about your cost? How involved do you want to be as a homeowner? Okay. So now that they've decided, all right, I'm gonna go the IPD route, which is what we do. Now we get in a product. At the product stage, that's now where they're thinking about the actual design, right? In other words, what's this thing gonna look like and what's this thing gonna cost? So they're looking for inspiration of design. They've settled on, okay, I'm definitely gonna remodel. I need a design build general contractor, or I need a GC, I need a designer, I need an architect, whatever. They understand what they need. Now they're going into, okay, it's gonna look like. Now, sometimes this gets flip-flopped, guys. It used to be people would go in a straight line. The thing is, what they're noticing is the homeowners don't go through this linearly anymore. There's no way to control it. Sometimes they go from problem aware down to product aware, then they fill in the solution, right? Okay, but you need to answer the question at each level. Product aware, that's call that design inspiration. Quality, right? They're looking for quality. Now at bottom funnel, now they want to bid. They want to know who is qualified to deliver this, and what does that cost? That's what they're trying to find out. You're going to have this complete conversation with a homeowner. The question is, how much of that do you want to do one-on-one? How long do you think that's going to take? Probably 7 hours. So you, as a person, don't get involved. This is 1-to-1. At bottom funnel, okay? And because this is where we're talking about money, and we're talking, that's where we're talking about money. Right, so at top funnel, what's the number one question at any stage of the buyer journey? Bingo. How much? Yeah, how long is it gonna take? How much is that gonna cost? You think maybe we could create a digital machine to answer that question? Yes, and we already have it, cool. Top funnel, we already talked about why these leads aren't ready to contract yet, because we have to take them through all the different stages of awareness. And the problem is you're getting a top funnel lead and you're assuming they're ready to go when they're not. And then one-on-one, you're having to invest those 40 hours answering all those damn questions. to get to the contract. When we have identified a qualified opportunity where we have JT, NBA, vis-a-vis this thingy, now we can drop them into the messy middle. How do we do that? Well, I'll tell you. This wasn't possible until recently, but Meta allows us to measure engagement, not with static images, but with video. So if we run a video ad to the calculator, and also my Facebook rep told me that the average reel, the average post, that content you guys create gets about 1.8 seconds of attention on average from a cold audience. The nearest block of time that we can measure is 15 seconds of engagement. Do you think 7x times the average is a strong behavioral indicator? Maybe. So we use this top funnel cheap traffic to build an audience of people that we know is in market, and then we can use Meta or TikTok or YouTube, social media. You can't do this with SEO because SEO is a pull. In other words, a person has to wake up one morning, go to a Google search bar and write general contractor near me, and then consume all of this content on your website. Do you have any control of anything at that point other than what the words say on your web? We need push, okay? That's why I am so big on broadcast media. If you're a more transactional contractor like an exteriors guy, so TV and radio at top funnel, so that they come to the website and then we retarget them off the website based off of how long they've been on your website. But still, we're always going to use social media at the middle funnel to deliver your little 2-3 minute messages that answer all those dumbass questions that the homeowner asks in the messy middle about how the differences between the project management style. Basically, essentially, what you're trying to do in the messy middle is explain what you do uniquely to solve their problem, how you do it, and what they can expect it to cost, right? So what I would propose, everybody's favorite topic is themselves, right? And you know how your prospect is trying to solve a problem, okay? So what if we had a digital assistant research for us the top 10 anxieties that a homeowner has related to our product, and then build our messy middle conversations centered on each anxiety. Here's what I mean by that. So top funnel, this is problem aware, but the system here, when they engage with your calculator, we know they're problem aware. We now need to pull them through the journey to most aware. Bottom funnel, right? How do we do that? So what we would do is we would have problem-aware content to confirm what problem they care about the most. And then if they consume that video, we drag them to their solution to that problem. Like, what do you think the top 10 problems are? It's always the same, market to market. Will this get done on time? What about blown budget? And then once they understand what the solution answers what, the what and why, and then at the product level, that's how, and at the most aware level, why and cost. Your offer. Y plus offer. And so what we do, so you got P1, P2, all the way to P10, problem 10, and then the subordinate levels all the way down to most aware. And so we use retargeting on the network based on, did they engage with that video, therefore showing interest, to show them the next stage. What happens if they stall out? Well, the system then finds a new problem they care about and then drags them through, okay? And we keep going all the way through P10. If we exhaust that and they still haven't got down to the most level, then we just start rotating through at the last level they left off. And after about a year, if they still haven't become a lead, then the system will kick them out. Like, clearly they were retired. But each one of those impressions costs you a penny. That 3-minute message replaces a 15 to 45 minute meeting with a homeowner. What's your time worth? At least $200 an hour, folks. At least $200 an hour. So every time they consume a video, you just got $50 of value in like not having to have invested your time into that person. Do you think they're now fully qualified because we've educated them on what we do that to solve the problem they said they're interested in? The homeowner understands how you uniquely do it, why you do it your specific way, what the benefit is from that, and gives them a really good idea of what it costs. You feel like that's a qualified opportunity to invest your time in at this point, Kyle? Cool, but you can't take anything for granted, can you? Trust but verify, right? Cool. So now that this jumps into your qualification call. What's the purpose of the qualification call? It's not to sell the homeowner on why, is this worth me driving out there to then put the pitch on. So it's a frame shift in your mind. You're not interviewing, you're not the one being interviewed, they are. And so then from the qual call, it drops down to the site visit. And at the site visit, you are reconfirming the problems they care about, what you do to solve that problem, how you do it, why, what's the benefit. We don't talk money at the site visit, right? And so the purpose of a site visit is to confirm a qualified opportunity before you invest the time into producing a proposal and presenting. Trying to save time, guys. We're still in marketing phase. At that point, if you decide to proceed and bid a job, that is now a qualified opportunity that sales owns, can't pitch to marketing, because sales got the chance to not once, but twice reconfirm, is this worth my time? Guys, you're not going one-to-one. So qual call, phone. If it's on the bubble, don't do a site visit. Do a Zoom. Save yourself the trip. Proposals are always in person. So now let's talk your sales system, right? Sales starts with the proposal, not at the site visit. You're not selling at the site visit. You're still qualifying them. I'm going to qualify them for realistic budget, but I'm not going to give them a bracket. I'm gonna give them a realistic, hey, this is not gonna be below this number. Right, so what we did in the marketing system was we just created a system for delivering messaging and a system for qualifying opportunities. So now we need to standardize our value proposition delivery and our proposal. How do you standardize that? You could just rely on your salespeople to just say the right thing in the right order, or maybe you give them a step-by-step framework for how to go through the discussion. And this is pretty complex stuff. So it doesn't start with the proposal. The sales system picks up about towards the end of the site visit. And so what you want to have is, you want to have a pitch book that delivers your value prop, and then you want to have a set proposal framework. Okay, now there's a lot of different ways you can do the pitch book. You could use the consumer awareness guide. You can just do it without having a presentation, in just a conversation naturally, the way Kyle does it. But the thing is, Kyle is a natural born salesperson and he's an owner. Do you really think you can replicate that genius with an employee? No, you can't. So does it make sense to just create a presentation and teach them how to present it? That's scalable. And so what you're trying to achieve in the pitch book is your value prop. What's your value prop? The problems you solve that the homeowner has, okay, how you do it, okay, why you do it that way. In other words, that's the payoff, the benefit to the homeowner in time and money, always quantified in time and money, and how, why. So you have to show them by exhausting, as if you're reading their mind. You're living rent-free in their head, anxiety by anxiety, what I do to deliver you what you want. Because the homeowner expects a gorgeous product. That's the bare minimum. They're evaluating you to see, are you gonna do this on time? Are you gonna be a hassle? Are you gonna disrupt my life? Can I stand talking to you for like 6 months every day? Those are the things they're evaluating. Has nothing to do with price. Price happens at proposal. And in this system, you actually need 3 components: value, price, and term. What's value? It's what they get. What's price? That's what you get. Terms, how the deal is structured. Okay, guess what? In any fair negotiation that has like equal leverage, one side gets to pick the price, the other side gets to pick the term. But it's not that mechanical. So what I'm getting at, if you noticed in our close, we drop the price on them, then we go into the scarcity and urgency of our next step. Now we're negotiating term, right? And ultimately the homeowner gets to decide on the terms, which is, when do we start the next step? And am I going to pay you the full amount now? Am I going to pay a $500 deposit? Is there going to be a guarantee on that? Those are all terms that a bad negotiator would show all of her cards and then be like, make your deal. Well, they're going to take the best one. Like, they're going to take everything you're willing to give at that. So no, that's why we do it linearly in the order I've trained you, where it's one card at a time. We have to educate them on the value, okay? Then we explain what the price is. Homeowner has no say in that. And then we start negotiating term, right? But it's a system, okay? It's a linear progression. So in the design phase, to get to a sub 2% slippage design, there's 3 steps. Task, condition, standard. For every process, okay? So you need a process for your design drawings. You need a process for your selections. You need a process for your construction documents. And when those are all done, finalized, briefed to me, and I'm like, hey, that makes sense because I'm your advisor, then congratulations, you've certified your design system, move on. So what goes in design drawing? It's your site plan, if you're doing any new structure, your floor plan, your elevations, and your running estimate. You know how I said task, conditions, and standards? I'm being super cheeky. I've already done the standards part for you. It's called the as-built checklist. And in your running estimate, what do you have? You have your bill of quantities, okay, which becomes colloquially your spec, and then your installation material is quoted, and then your labor is arranged, and your selections are arranged. So because we haven't picked out our finished material, just low end, minimum low end. Hey, it's not. There's no way it's going to be below this. It could go as much as you want. Now, be smart about what that minimum number is. So then the selection schedule. This is all you do. This is taken from your running estimate. If this was my business, I would create a sub-process in here for a virtual assistant to build my selection schedule, okay, with the minimums and then the maximums. Guess who gets to set the maximum? So every time you want to proceed from step 1, step 2 to step 3, you need to have a review, a project review. This is system number 4, a project review internally to make sure that everything's accurate and right. And then a customer review. Kyle calls them budget check-in. The whole purpose of a budget check-in is to show them all what they've got for the money so far and to get a decision from them. What is that decision? It's not to proceed. It's to set the high end of the budget at design drawings. It's to set the budget for the selection, because you're telling them, look, this is what your installation material is going to cost minimum. This is what your labor is going to cost minimum, and this is how much money you need minimum to do your selections. Okay, and then you give them an explanation of the level of quality to expect. And then you ask them, number 1, are you comfortable with this budget range? Number 2 is, how much higher do you think you can go on the selections so that we can then send that to the selection specialist, right? So that the homeowner decides what the high end is going to be. And if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation, just do it for them and contradict everything I just said right here. That's fine, okay? Just know you're going to run into a scenario where the homeowner's going to be like, who are you to tell me what I can and not spend? Fine, punt. Now we need a process for how we create the selection schedule for the VA, how we communicate the decisions that were made, document the decisions that were made, so you don't have homeowners saying, I didn't pick that olive green, whatever. Like, no, you did. Like, here's the approval document that you signed. So then when the selections are done, what do you do again? Project review and a customer review. And the thing is, and for each process, what are the 3 components? Yep, task, resources, and standard. And inside standards, that's where you're going to build in your accountability. Who needs to know what decision are they making? Because you're going to review the selections, make sure all your selections are done before we go into what you would call budget check-in 1 before trades day. So then in construction docs, all construction docs is design drawings, that's this stuff, plus your selection schedule, plus your scope, your formal scope, plus your final price. This is everything you need to get a permit. Shear plan, load plan, engineering, all that stuff. The quality control checklist in that is called construction document requirement. We use this in our project review, and then we go to customer review. Customer approves. The only decision we want at the end of construction documents is, do you approve the budget? Because you still haven't spec'd what the labor is going to cost yet. That's still your wild card. And the reason why we do labor last is so you always have an out. There's always an element of unknown that is structurally going to happen later that can't be known now, and we're not proceeding until the homeowner makes a decision. And so their only 2 levers are add more budget, reduce scope, not mess with John's profit margin. That's why we do it this way. It's why we do the trades day last. You need 3 master processes for your design system: design drawings, selections, and construction doc. You need a process for project review at each stage. You need a process for customer review at each stage. A process has 3 components: task, who is doing what; conditions, which are the resources available to execute; and then standard, quality standard, deadline, and accountability feedback. We don't have a build contract yet, do we? We just completed the design and the estimate. Now we're in pre-con process. Hey, you don't enter pre-con process until 2 conditions are met. Number 1, permit is applied for, okay, which means successful design. And number 2, the homeowner has approved the budget range. Not proceeding. So pre-con starts with trades day. So you need a process for trades day, then a final budget check-in, which is the second time they soil their drawers, okay? And then you need a process for contract. At trades day, you're gonna need a sub-process for what's called buying out the trade. Remember how I said that it's a ledger of, think of your scope of work as a statement of liabilities, and we are going to transfer that risk, that execution risk, to a subcontractor, line for line, okay? That's process 1. How am I going to take my formal scope of work that the homeowner's approved with the budget and pull off and decide what trades do I want to bring to the dance? What work am I going to assign them? And where am I, what is going to be my opening number that I'm willing to pay for that? Anchor it low. But minimum, invite 2 trades to the dance, right? You're going to run at a minimum 2 trades days. And so you need a process for how you, number one, who you invite. And who you invite either says, when you send out an email with the scope of work and your budget, okay, they respond, yes, I can do it for that. Great, you're invited to trades day. Notice I said email. And then you text them, say, hey, I sent you another job. Can you do it? So once all your trades are bought out, you need a process for how you do the buyout. You need a process for how you run the trades day. I recommend 2. One with the sub that you actually want to do business with, because that's the trusted version. And then one with one that you know is going to be cheap. You know that guy's going to be cheap because you're going to use that cheap number as leverage to get the good one to come down to as low as you can get them. That is how you engineer that value. And it's your decision of, do I use that grippage to be more competitive, to close the gap? Because I promise you there's a gap at this stage between what it's going to cost versus what the homeowner wants to pay. So we could take that newfound money and apply it to closing that gap. Let's say we can't close the gap, or let's say we want to put that in our contingency fund, but we still need to close the bridge. You can't show your numbers at 42% gross profit and then magically find 5% of savings without being able to point to something as a reason why we found the savings. Number one, it's cover so that you can just arbitrarily pick a number that you're going to price the job at in order to get it if you want it. But also number 2, it's for your subs to confirm that the existing conditions or the site plan are feasible, therefore cementing the scope of work and their numbers. No change order. No, there's the only reason they can get a change order is if there's unforeseen condition. That's why we do the trades day. Cool. And now you need a process for how you conduct your pre-con meeting. Who's invited? I recommend demo, framing, your MEP, and your drywall guy, just so you can get everybody, basically every trade before your first major inspection. Okay, so guys, now congratulations. You have a signed contract, you have a deposit, you have your execution, your initial execution programmed all the way through your first major inspection, and your team's going through pre-con, and you have a report that are you comfortable with the job going to build knowing that you've gone through this entire process from 4,000 miles away? I'd be like, yeah, cool, pull the ripcord, let's go. Like, why are you calling me? Let's talk first principles. Can you install material that's not there? Therefore, do you agree with the statement that logistics drives operation? Can a problem get solved if you don't know about it? Okay, so communication drives operations. Cool, so in build, all you need is a process for how you run logistics, okay? How you run communication, and then number 3, how you hold accountability. And that's quality and that's schedule. Quality are your trade phase checks. Like, did you complete the scope? Was it done to code? Did you follow the scope, the spec of the scope, according to the NAHB Blue Book for residential construction standards? Why would you define quality standards in a build contract ahead of time? Warranty issues, what else? Punch out. That way the homeowner can't move the goalpost. There's an objective standard for you to build to and meet. All you can control is you performing on a contract. You actually can't control what the homeowner does. But guess what? There is no remedy for you if you didn't perform either. For how we deliver material, how do we communicate problems and solutions, and how do we run accountability on quality and schedule? Task, conditions, standards with a feedback loop. Last thing, we need a system for AP, or AP, AR. Number 1, you need a system for how you pay vendors and subs and W-2. And then number 2, in each one of these, like each categories is a sub process. And inside each process, we need a trigger for how do we know to initiate this. We need a trigger for when we follow up for not being paid. We need a trigger we need a sub process that ensures we understand what collections are aging out and who's following up, when, at what cadence, and what they're saying. This all can be automated in your go high level, y'all. And then how you get paid. Are you accepting check? Are you taking a card, like draw? What are we doing here? Task, condition, standards. Who's responsible? What are they doing? Condition. What are the skills or the material that's required? Standard. Define a completed job.